You're watching This Week in Louisiana Politics with Fred Childers.
Good morning, I'm Fred Childers. Thanks for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Politics on your local election headquarters. A lot of proposed laws were discussed this week. This week, controversial social issues hit the Capitol that brought out powerful testimony and tense moments as well. HB 466 and HB 81 brought a large crowd to the hearing this week for bills that would prohibit talking about gender identity and sexual orientation. Capitol reporter Shannon Hecht was there to catch the passionate debate.
The bill that has been likened to Florida's Don't Say Gay law was brought for a second year. It would ban educators from talking about sexual orientation and gender identity if it's not explicitly approved in the state curriculum. Teachers also could not talk about their own identity.
Our children go to school to learn, to be taught, not to be indoctrinated or confused by anyone else's ideology.
LGBTQ rights advocates spoke about how limiting a child's ability to ask questions or hold alliance clubs could add to the already high suicide rate in that vulnerable population.
I'm saying that children already know because it's something that exists within you. It's not something, as we've heard it referred to so far, as being infiltrating school systems, infiltrating children's minds.
Some educators spoke against the bill, saying it is too broad, and teachers are worried about what they can and can't talk about in the classroom.
Think about what it does to teachers, the fear and the uncertainty that it interjects into their classrooms. We are struggling to recruit and retain teachers.
HB 81 by Raymond Cruz would ban using a student's preferred pronouns and required using their dead name unless they have written permission from their parents.
The child thinks there's some kind of confusion there or wants to talk about it. The parents definitely need to be involved in that, and that's really what this is.
Advocates push back that some students do not feel safe telling their parents for fear of rejection or abuse.
Now, both bills passed out of the committee with a 7-5 vote and head to the full House for debate. The controversy doesn't stop there. A bill aiming to limit children's access to some books in public libraries was heard in the state legislature this week as well. What was set to be a heated debate was abruptly stopped after a lawmaker invoked a rule. Shannon has more.
Today was the first hearing of one of the library bills, and it was shaping up to be a very long hearing with lots of testimony. But after hearing just 3 people in favor of the bill, the public testimony was cut off. SB 7 aims to limit children's access to books deemed sexually explicit. It would make libraries adopt policies that allow parents to restrict a child's library card of what is allowed to be checked out.
I have before you a piece of legislation that simply requires libraries to adopt and implement policy language to tailor the access of minors' library cards.
The books used as an example by the Attorney General's Protecting Innocence report mostly have LGBTQ themes, which advocates for the community feel is targeting them for censorship. Only 3 people in favor of the bill were allowed to speak before Senator Bodie White made a motion to cut off public testimony as a whole. Nobody in opposition had a chance to speak.
About the 10 books from the AG, though none of those are found in children's sections in any library in our state at all whatsoever. So I am very upset that we were not allowed to get up and state that fact to the board as a whole.
The bill passed without any objection, and the next time the public could testify is if it passes the Senate and is brought to a House committee. The bill now advances to the full Senate for more debate. At the Capitol for your local election headquarters, I'm Shannon Hecht.
After a string of fights have broken out across Louisiana schools, lawmakers are looking to back up teachers, but some say their idea could lead to abuse. The bill expands the civil liability protections that teachers have and extends it to criminal prosecution. The bill's author says she wants teachers to be able to break up fights without facing penalties. During the hearing, Denham Springs Representative Valerie Hodges says she did not consult with the teachers' unions on the bill, which advocates say is troubling.
Who's to say that teachers want to intervene in this way? Why aren't we looking for a more plausible solution or security in these school settings rather than giving teachers another function and we can't even pay them what they're worth already?
Some fear the immunity given to teachers would remove any accountability for cases of students being abused. The Federation of Teachers says they don't want to have to clean up any unintended consequences that may come from it. Survivors of domestic abuse or human trafficking who have criminal cases could get help under a new bill that advanced this week. Some survivors have stories of being forced to commit crimes for fear of more abuse or even death. The bill by State Senator Regina Barrow would allow for expert witnesses to testify about abuse for the case. Advocates say it is not a get-out-of-jail-free card, but rather a way to make sure a case is properly heard.
The problem is, under the current defenses, there's no real opportunity legally for the jury or the judge to hear all the considerations of abuse outside of the very, very narrow sort of self-defense standard we have today.
The bill would allow for old cases to revisit new information regarding abuse. District attorneys from around the state say the bill is not clear enough and could be used to blame crime on abuse not related to the case. State lawmakers also advanced a bill to make it easier to recall elected leaders. This is after that failed attempt to remove New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell. Under the current state law, a successful recall requires a percentage of the total number of voters in the area where the election was held. This new bill would lower that number by requiring only a percentage of people who actually voted in the election. Lawmakers deciding to douse efforts to decriminalize marijuana in Louisiana. Democratic State Representative Candace Newell says her bill would light up state revenue by taxing the legal sale and distribution of weed and bring in more green for the economy. Newell pointed out the so-called devil's lettuce is legal in 22 other states, but the House Criminal Justice Committee voted 9-4 along party lines to blow the measure away and try again next year. Democrats in the State House have added another to their ranks after a representative switched parties this week. Tell you who it is next.
This is your local election headquarters.
All right, it's always exciting in Louisiana. Yet another party change is happening in the Louisiana House of Representatives. State Representative Roy Darrell Adams, representing parts of East and West Feliciana parishes, is switching from an independent to a Democrat. Louisiana Democratic Party Chair Katie Bernhardt said she is happy to bring Adams to the party. Adams said he has spoken to his constituents and they are supporting him in this change.
I'm mostly vote with the Democrats. I have and I will, and I hope I can influence some of my Republican colleagues to at least vote with us.
This comes after two members of the party in the State House recently switched their parties to Republican, giving them a supermajority in that chamber. The House is now made up of 71 Republicans, 33 Democrats, and 1 independent. If you're an Entergy customer, you should be getting a refund soon on your bill. The State Public Service Commission has reached a settlement with Entergy after suing the company for overcharging customers to cover the expense of operating the Grand Gulf nuclear power plant. The settlement is $36 million.
When people like Entergy or any other utility gets out of line, that they're going to face our lawyers and we're going to hold them accountable.
The commission could not say how much of a refund each customer will get from the settlement, but refunds are expected to show up on Entergy bills in the next few months, so be on the lookout for those. Governor John Bel Edwards joined the Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority and other organizations at the Capitol to recognize Coastal Day. CPRA and hundreds of other groups are working to design, build, and operate large-scale restoration and risk reduction solutions aimed at preserving the state's history, culture, and natural resources. Many say they're threatened by ongoing land loss and flood risk.
We are very much in a race against time. And that is why we have worked so hard to make sure that we are advancing projects that we are maximizing the role of science because that's how you minimize the role of politics.
This year's coastal plan allocates more than $1.5 billion for restoration projects across South Louisiana. The public got a chance to hear some answers or non-answers, depending on how you look at it, on issues plaguing the state by the 7 candidates who are running for governor. PAR Louisiana held a forum to ask each candidate a set of questions. Jessica Knox reports.
The Crown Plaza in the capital area had a packed house for a gubernatorial forum with Louisiana's 7 major candidates.
Why are you running for governor?
The 5 Republicans running are Attorney General Jeff Landry, State Senator Sharon Hewitt, State Treasurer John Schroeder, State Representative Richard Nelson, and former LABI leader Stephen Wagenspack. Running as an independent is Lake Charles attorney Hunter Lundy and Democrat Sean Wilson, who is the former DOTD secretary.
I care about Louisiana. I love this state, and I think I have something to offer that we have not seen before.
Candidates answered 9 different questions about various topics like Medicaid expansion, Louisiana's budget, and education, and their plan to keep people in the state and make it a place where people want to live.
There's still 4.2, 4.3 million people that'll still here. We've got to focus on those that are here.
We have to have high schools become launch points for every single kid, no matter what challenges or opportunities they face.
We're the #1 poverty state in the nation, and so you wonder why. We can't even keep people safe in this state.
There was a rapid-fire round of questions for all candidates, including their stance on renewing the state's sales tax when it expires.
There may be some adjustments, but we're not really good about forecasting our revenue, so I think we sit tight and we take a look at where we are in a couple of years.
I think it's an opportunity to do substantive wholesale tax reform.
We're going to balance the budget. Period.
I don't think this is the time for us to be able to make drastic changes like eliminating that.
Jessica Knox, NBC Local 33 News.
Coming up, remember when we told you the National Flood Insurance policyholders would see a steep rate hike? One Louisiana congressman tells me maybe not. We'll talk to him. Representative Troy Carter is next.
This is your local election headquarters.
Welcome back to This Week in Louisiana Politics. As we've mentioned, lawmakers on Capitol Hill have been discussing changes to the National Flood Insurance Program. They call it Risk Rating 2.0. The problem is this could cause a lot of people who have this insurance higher premiums. People in Louisiana, especially those folks on the coast. I want to bring in U.S. Representative Troy Carter. He sits on a committee that's looking into this. Welcome to the show, Congressman.
Fred, thank you very much. Always a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, you bet. So let's talk about this, the changes for the National Flood Insurance Program. We thought these changes, which again would mean higher premiums for people in Louisiana, we thought this was a done deal. You and your committee say it's not a done deal.
Well, up until now, all of the pushback that we've given, both with the White House, with FEMA, has essentially not gotten us about a bunch of action. Last week, we're very fortunate to have an opportunity to have Secretary Mayorkas before Homeland Security Committee, for which I serve on. I had an opportunity to speak to him directly about the negative impacts of this Risk Rating 2.0, which is the remake of the National Flood Insurance Program, one that has caused great angst and trouble for people in Louisiana, across the country, but particularly in Louisiana, we see that in some cases we have increases as much as 130% of where these rates were. People who up until now had never been required to have flood insurance, now being required to have flood insurance. Imagine what happens to a person that doesn't live in a floodplain, has not had issues of flooding, but all of a sudden now they're being made to have flood insurance when they're on a fixed income, or when they are retired and no longer drawing income, and now they're operating on their savings. And now they essentially get a house note where they didn't have one in the twilight of their years, or people that are poor, or people who are impoverished, but they own their homes. This could be a incredibly negative game changer. But fortunately, through my discussions with Secretary Mayorkas, I was able to get my points across, and he recognized and admitted that this is not a done deal and that it requires additional review. So I'm very happy that the Secretary has agreed, and will be looking further at how we could modify this risk rating 2.0 to come up with something that does not create the negative impact that it's creating in Louisiana.
Congressman, that's certainly encouraging. I saw your exchange with Mayorkas. I saw where he said, look, we're going to review this new formula from FEMA. And again, that formula is what increases the rates. I know you're optimistic, and that's great, but when the government tells me they're going to review something, I wonder how long it's going to take, and I wonder if it's not going to get worse.
Well, listen, I doubt very seriously that it'll get worse. As to the time frame, we're going to be pushing hard. Listen, this is not something that we can go celebrate. It's all over. We fixed it. But it is something we can celebrate, that we've had positive movement. For the last year, we've had no movement whatsoever. In fact, we've had pushback to somewhat defend a program that we all agree is flawed, a program that, as far as we can tell, doesn't take into account the mitigation actions that we've taken, the shoring up, the flood, the levee rebuilds, the areas that we have gone through painstaking measures to secure and to make areas less flood prone. We think that we should get credit for those things. And also, we think that there should be transparency, that the public should see what are the algorithms that you use, what formula are you using to arrive at these increases that are strangling the people of Louisiana. We don't believe it's fair, and we're going to stay on top of Secretary Mayorkas and FEMA to make sure that we have some positive resolve, and that it's done rapidly, because every day that goes by, ratepayers in Louisiana are paying these fees, and many people are having one of two options, and I don't like either. One is to have to move out of the home that they plan to retire in, because they can no longer afford to live in an area even though they may own the home. And the second is equally as dangerous, and that is for people to go uninsured. And we know what happens in the case of a peril if people are uninsured.
You guys have been asking about these formulas for some time now. Have they shown you the new formulas?
The formula is not clear. No, we would like to see how it's arrived at. What are these algorithms that they allege that they use? What are the formulas? What's the plan? What are the criteria that you take into effect to provide reductions? Like, for example, in Louisiana, as you know, we have spent millions and millions of dollars on creating safer floodplains through our levee protection systems. We've done an incredible job. Parish presidents and throughout this state has been working with CPRA and many others to make sure that we, in fact, are creating better and safer environments. Yet I see no evidence that we're being credited for that.
Yeah, we'll be keeping an eye on this as well, but I also wanted to point out you're the only Democrat in the Louisiana delegation, but this is a bipartisan issue, right?
This is incredibly bipartisan. You know, I often say that while there are things that Democrats and Republicans can certainly disagree on. We have far more that we can work together on for the American people. This is a perfect example of a bipartisan effort that all members of our delegation are in lockstep on. We've written joint letters to FEMA. We've been in discussions together. We continue to look at other ways of bringing relief to the people of Louisiana. So this is another one of those cases where we stand lockstep together to fight for the people of Louisiana.
All right, Congressman Troy Carter, we know you'll stay on top of this. We will stay on top of it as well. We'll watch this process. Keep us updated.
Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it.
All right, thank you, sir. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
This is your local election headquarters.
Welcome back. Looking ahead to the coming week, on Monday, Governor John Bel Edwards will be addressing the Baton Rouge Press Club. It'll probably be his last time as governor anyway. Also on Monday, the state budget bill is expected to advance out of the Appropriations Committee. We'll keep an eye on that as well. Tuesday, the controversial bill looking to ban gender-affirming care for children will be debated. And on Friday, the Joint Legislative Committee on the Budget will meet at 9 at the Capitol. Thank you for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Politics. I'm Fred Childers. Stay informed, and I'll see you next Sunday right here on your local election headquarters.